Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma231 here, back in today to talk about Witch Watch episode number 7. This episode is split into two parts, the first part being titled Kan and Nico's Channel, and the second part being titled The Tea Ceremony is a Piece of Tea Cake. Of course, the original Witch Watch manga is written by Kento Shinohara, and the anime production is being produced by Bilberry Animation Studios. And hey, this episode of Witch Watch covers chapter number 20, and chapter number 32 of the manga. I really think that we are getting to a point here with the Witch Watch anime where a lot of the bigger gag chapters are sort of getting all condensed into all of these various episodes all together. I mean, of course, as we'll see next episode, I already sort of looked at, like, just from the name of what they're giving us for next episode, and it seems like next episode we are going to be dealing with like chapter number 37 and chapter number 18. Like, we're really jumping around to get all of these like similar ideas placed into these episodes. Of course, like the way the Witch Watch manga works is like, hey, all of these gag comedy chapters, and then of course, hey, eventually we'll have these bigger serious arcs where like there's a whole lot more stakes, and that's where we really learn more of the overarching story that Witch Watch is trying to tell. And hey, that's not a bad thing. That's the way the anime is set up. I mean, plenty of other big anime. Of course, I know that Gintama is always very much brought up, but it's like, hey, Witch Watch is the new Gintama, and I necessarily don't 100% agree with that statement. Granted, I have not fully gotten through all of Gintama. I really enjoyed, like, the first 50 or so episodes that I could find dubbed online to watch, and just the way that I am an anime fan, I only really like to watch subbed anime in the moment whenever it's releasing, and then later on I like to go back and check out a dub, because normally it's like, hey, I'll watch anime whenever they're releasing on like a couch or something, or just like as an experience, and then like going to bed or something like that, I'll throw in an episode of our anime, and normally a subbed anime, it makes me fall asleep incredibly fast, so it's really good for getting me asleep whenever I want to, but it's also pretty bad wanting to sort of comprehend everything that's going on. Like, I'm pretty sure I've been stuck on like episode number 106 of Gintama here for like, oh gosh, it's probably been like a year and a half. Like, so I was just watching everything, and then I just kept falling asleep so often during this episode that I forgot everything else that came before it, but I just remember like the first 10 minutes of this episode so very clearly, pretty much, right? But of course, getting to this episode of Witch Watch, this is an extremely good one, going through a lot of my favorite gags that we get early on in this series. And of course, if you guys don't know how this video series works, this is Witch Watch from a manga reader's perspective. I've been reading this manga since pretty much day one. We're just going to like slip it in there. I've got a few chapters. It doesn't matter regardless, but I just absolutely love this manga. I love talking about today in my weekly Shonen Jump series. So I'm like, hey, the anime is coming out. Let's just sit down and talk about it, right? And really, without any further ado, I guess let's just go and talk about this episode of Witch Watch and all of the various events and everything going on here, right? Well, we start off this episode of Witch Watch, of course, episode number 7, the first part being titled Kan and Nico's Channel. And we start off with pretty much a camera focusing in the frame, pretty much, right? As we see a camera focuses on Nico's face here in a moment, then Kanchi appears out of the corner, and we see that Kan and Nico are sort of like bantering back and forth until eventually they're like, hey, we're going to sing an original song that we wrote here, right? And they're pretty much going through and singing this song here in a moment. And of course, Morihito isn't very happy by them causing all this ruckus, like, very, very late at night. He opens a door, and oh, look at this, it's a YouTube video that they uploaded online, almost like what I'm doing currently the recording process of, right? And Morihito bursts in like, oh no, look at this, they named a video, hey, our roommate burst in on us making a video, pretty much, right? And we really get the whole idea of like, yes, Kan and Nico have made a YouTube channel. Well, it's at this point where we get the opening theme of Witch Watch, of course, titled Watch Me by Yoasobi. Again, just an absolutely brilliant opening. There's nothing more I can say besides like, hey, the official single of the song is out now, so go and check it out on whatever you listen to music on. If you're a YouTube music guy, if you're an Apple Music, Spotify, whatever all the other platforms are, because legitimately, if there are others than those three, I don't know what they are. I really only use YouTube just because, like, I'm so far in at this point. I mean, I do use Spotify. What can I say? I listened to, like, 7 hours of Spotify yesterday because I had a bunch of, like, stuff I had to go around and do, but either way, that's sort of where we're getting to the point of, right? The opening theme, Watch Me by Yoasobi, single is out now. I'm not paid to promote this, even though I'm just sitting down here and talking about an anime series that... Do I need to rethink my life choices? Maybe. Alright. But as we cut further into the episode, we pretty much need to, like, yes, Kan and Nico got told by one of the members of town, like, hey, making a YouTube channel is extremely easy way to make money, pretty much. And we sort of see, like, hey, this is by a guy named Sergeant Punch, who really doesn't know too much about all of the world, right? He just, like, said, hey, it seems like easy money, you kids should do it, pretty much, right? And Morihito's pretty much asking Kan and Nico a bunch of these, like, prying questions about, like, hey, what are you guys making and all this, right? And he eventually goes and watches a video, and he sees that it's legitimately a terrible video, right? Like, it's got no very good production values. It's just a whole bunch of things very much everywhere, right? And we then see, like, hey, it's not very good, and Morihito pretty much goes into what I call parent mode, where he starts to lecture both Kan and Nico on all this various stuff. And it's here whenever he's doing this, and we get one of my favorite parts that sort of dates this episode a little bit, because as we will see here, they're of course using the YouTube interface, and of course, the Witch Watch manga originally debuted in 2021, and this chapter probably came out, this was chapter number 20, let's see, it's about 4 chapters per month. It started at the end of January, so if we do all of our math there, like I'm trying to do in my head, this chapter probably debuted somewhere during July of 2021, right? And of course, a big change happened to YouTube on November 10th. I actually sat down and looked this up. And on November 10th is when the dislike button got removed from YouTube, right? So you can, of course, click the dislike button, but you cannot see how many dislikes a video actually has. But of course, because this manga chapter was written before that change happened, you can actually see the dislike button is still there with a number showing beside it. And it's just a really fun change. It really dates this episode back whenever the original chapter came out, which I think is a really, really funny thing, right? Well, pretty much, this channel isn't looking too very much good at all, and hey, Moi's like, hey, I think I know somebody who can help us out with this, and he brings them over and introduces them all to Keigo Makami, and pretty much is like, hey, this is Keigo Makami, he is our class's loser hipster guy. His words, not mine. That is literally what he says, right? And pretty much the whole idea here is like, hey, Keigo has his own YouTube channel, except the way he sort of is like, everything he says is like, hey, I'm just so different than the rest of you, and I'm so unique in these same sort of ways. So we really see it like, yes, Kanchi and Keigo are the exact polar opposites of people, pretty much, right? And Keigo's YouTube channel is called Keigo Makami Invisible Rainbow, pretty much, right? And we go through a few of his videos to sort of see what he does. He does a lot of movie reviews here in a moment. And what he does is really just talk about how much he enjoyed it without going to any detail about what the movie was about whatsoever, right? But either way, Keigo's videos still have a bit more production values than Kan's and Nico's, so the whole idea is like, hey, we're pretty much going to recruit him to help us out make a few videos here, right? And the really whole idea is here, like, hey, we cut back over to the Otogi household, and Moi is really taking over the YouTube production for Kan and Nico's channel, pretty much, right? Keigo comes over and just, like, loans them a little bit of equipment and everything. We see that Moi buys a green screen and all of that. And he pretty much is like, all right, Nico, we're going to sit you down in this chair and you are going to be playing this game that Keigo made. It was something that was brought up earlier in the chapter that Keigo made a game. That was really the one big video that he had on his channel was like, hey, he made this game and a few people found it very much interesting, right? Well, Nico sits down and tries to, like, see how everything is working, pretty much plays the game in front of it, right? And hey, we sort of see, like, hey, Nico plays it, Kanchi's told to pretty much stay out of the way, and Morihito pretty much directs and edits the video. We see Keigo lazing around the house as he's pretty much helping out Morihito go through and do all of this various stuff, until eventually we see the video getting uploaded, and we see a part of it, right? So you see that the game that Keigo's made is this game where there's like a bunch of like trees with spikes, like a bunch of palm trees with spikes on them, and you are in control of these 2 grasshoppers, and I don't remember what the explanation was for what you're supposed to be doing with them, but either way, what you'll see is like, hey, Nico is not the best at this game as she's sitting down and playing it, so she's playing the game. We see that Kanchi has a voiceover commentary that is pretty much cutting through the video the entire time, right? And hey, we see that like, hey, this video goes a little bit viral, and it's really cool. Both Kan and Nico are extremely happy. And like, hey, there's honestly a really nice moment where Morihito comes over and just is like, hey, it wouldn't have been possible without all of your guys' traits, pretty much. Like, hey, we had Keigo who helped us to get he had to know how to be able to tell us how to do this, pretty much. Kanchi, your witty remarks were so good. And Nico, I mean, your cuteness is what brought this video to life on screen. And it's just a really cool and awesome moment here. And Nico's just like, oh, thank you, Morihito, right? But the whole joke to this chapter is like, hey, they make 3 more videos, they all do pretty well, but then both Kan and Nico get bored of it, and that's sort of where this journey ends for the 2 of them. And that's where we end the first part of this episode, of course, titled Kan and Nico's channel. At this point, we get the break of the episode as we pretty much just see one of these polygonal grasshoppers here on the fade out of the episode, and on the fade in, we see a character who will be pretty much relevant during the second half of this episode, as we pretty much will learn later that their name is Shizuka Kiyomiya, pretty much, right? Well, the second part of this episode is titled, The Tea Ceremony is a Piece of Tea Cake, right? And we just see this girl, Suzuka, pretty much comes up and, like, hey, she hands over a class journal to Nico, right? Because, of course, it's Nico's turn to be in control of the class, or whatever that tradition that we often see in anime, manga series is. It's something they do in Japan. Doesn't really happen here in the States, at least where I am, right? At least not in my general area on the East Coast, right? But either way, we see that Shizuka hands over the class journal, and Nico's like, wow, Shizuka's always just so incredibly cool, or Suzuka, she's just so cool constantly, and, like, she's just so completely awesome. I think she would be one of the most perfect women out there, pretty much. Like, she's just so completely awesome, right? And we get the whole idea that, like, yes, while she seems that way, she is not in reality at all, right? We see that she has a little bit of a meeting with Nico and Moi, pretty much, like, hey, can you help me out? I've got a request that only a witch can sort of fulfill, pretty much, right? And she says, like, hey, whenever I was younger, my grandma put me through a lot of these various lessons to where I know almost everything here, but I cannot execute on any of them really perfectly, pretty much, right? And the whole idea is that here soon, she needs to become more skillful because she has to do the tea ceremony in front of her grandma, and if she fails, her grandma is going to be putting her through more lessons, which will mean she'll have less time to actually do and enjoy her general life, pretty much, right? So the whole idea is she's like, hey, can you please make me skillful with magic so whenever I do the tea ceremony, I won't completely fail constantly, right? And Nico's like, oh yeah, I have a spell for that. Asks both Suzuka and Moi to pretty much put their hands out, and she casts a spell called Synclone on them, pretty much, right? And tells Morihito, like, hey, can you raise up your right hand? He raises up his right hand. Oh, and look at that. Shizuka's right hand goes up in the same, or Suzuka's arm also goes up in the same, her right hand also moves up as Morihito moves his, pretty much, right? And the whole idea is like, hey, what we'll do is we'll cast this spell and have Morihito perfectly learn the tea ceremony so he can go through and pretty much execute on this in the moment, right? So we do a little bit of montage. Hey, Morihito completely trains all of his various things, and he masters it here in the moment, right? And hey, then all of the training is complete, and it's time to go for a test run at, of course, the Kiyomiya family manor, pretty much, right? So we see that everybody gets over there, and like, hey, Morihito, Kan, and Nico are over there, and we also see that Keigo is here with them, and there's a little bit of a thing brought up, like, hey, Keigo, why are you here? And pretty much Keigo came over because he has these glasses with a camera on them, right? And the camera on these glasses can live stream to a phone, pretty much, and then if we put that phone in a VR headset, that way, Suzuka can put on these glasses, and then Morihito can put on a VR headset with this phone to pretty much understand exactly what she is doing in the moment to be able to sync up with the Synclone spell, pretty much, right? So that's the whole idea, right? It's like, hey, we're getting ready to do this pretty much test run of everything, but oh no, Shizuka runs up and just says like, hey, no, my grandma's here right now, and she wants to do the tea ceremony right this second. Oh no, they don't have a test run or time to test run, pretty much, right? And we really just hop into the tea ceremony at this point. We see the first part of the tea ceremony is going through and opening this door, as we sort of understand, like, yes, Morito's proportions are larger than Suzuka's. So whenever he goes to sort of move through this door, her hands aren't quite as long, so they're not fully reaching on it like his should be able to, right? Which makes a little bit of a problem there. He goes over, and instead of opening up the door in 3 separate steps, he goes and does it all at once. Oh no, that's not great, right? Well, eventually we move on from that, as it's time to go over and enter the room. As we see that Morihito gets ready to go in, and pretty much goes on 2 knees and sort of uses his hands and pulls himself forward, right? But of course, the force needed to lift Morihito off the ground is more than what's required to lift Suzuka off the ground. So Morihito goes over and uses the thing and pretty much does it as he would, but of course, his proportions are so much bigger and all of that than Suzuka's, it doesn't quite work out. It looks like she is a frog leaping over all of this various stuff, right? oh no, that's not great. It's then time to partake in some candy here in the moment. So like, hey, we do all the things, and Morihito is actually looking really good here in the moment. But of course, a problem has to arise. It's like, okay, we have to go through and eat this candy, and so Morihito can actually eat something and not pretend to. They have one of these little small wafer round cookies in the moment. Hey, he's able to put that on the ground, effortlessly eat it, and it's simple as that pretty much, right? So he goes through, partakes in it, and oh no, he eats the cookie, but of course, a cookie is a lot faster to eat than a hard candy, pretty much. And that's where an issue comes out there. Oh no, swallows it too fast. It's not the best thing to do. We then just see like, hey, you gotta go and partake in the tea. Of course, Morihito cannot see where her mouth is, so he can't effortlessly drink it. So we see that she has pretty much the green tea stain around her mouth for the rest of this little bit of a section. And we just pretty much cut through to the rest of the tea ceremony where like, hey, it's not going perfectly because like, hey, it's not syncing all these things up, isn't working as ideally as they wanted to, and there was no test run able to be had, pretty much, right? Well, as all this is going on, Shizuka's grandma just says, like, hey, you are extremely failing here, you're a disappointment to our family, pretty much. And at this point, oh no, Shizuka realizes, hey, there's a giant hornet flying behind you. And the grandma's like, oh no, giant hornets, I hate those things, pretty much, right? So she starts to, like, get all up in arms about it. And of course, Morihito's just like, oh, well, we can do something about this. And reaches down for one of these tea stir things, pretty much, and goes and grabs it and uses an Ogre Qui-Gong fly catcher move here in a moment. Goes through and catches the fly. And of course, this is being done on Shizuka here in the moment, as Shizuka is the one who actually goes through and catches the fly in the thing. And pretty much we just get a little bit of an understanding saying like, hey, in this moment, the grandma, we get her name, but it's not really important, so I didn't feel like writing it down. Pretty much like, hey, she thought it was one of the most beautiful performances that she had ever seen, and she pretty much goes through and rescinds the failure that she'd given Shizuka here before. And it's sort of on this note where we end off the episode as Shizuka's like, hey, thank you for pretty much all of that, and I was wondering, we have this other competition coming up soon, I sort of need some help with it. Morihito, would you be willing to help me out? And he's like, no, I'm not doing that at all. And that's where we end this episode of Witch Watch, of course, with the ending theme titled Maho Spice by Ao. And of course, we have the next episode preview, as we are getting 2 installments of the Conchi's Part-Time Job Diaries series. Of course, the first part being called The Superhero Show, and the second part being called The Side Job. And that's where we end this episode of Witch Watch. Now, of course, as I mentioned earlier, this episode is a little weird whenever it comes to anime changes, for the fact of like, yes, we're covering chapters 20 and chapters number 32. Now, of course, the way that Witch Watch works, as I mentioned earlier, is like, hey, we've got all these gag chapters going around in here, and there are some gags that really persist more throughout the series, right? Like, Kan and Nico's YouTube channel gets brought up a whole lot more in the other 200 chapters of the series, along with the whole tea ceremony thing. We learned there's a relation to somebody in the school there, and they get brought up again. I'm sure they'll get brought up probably in the second core of this season, if I'm not mistaken, so probably past, like, episode 13 or something like that. But really, with all of that in mind, we also have to realize there is a big, massive arc that spans about 9 chapters from chapter number, like, 21 all the way to chapter, I think, like, 29. I guess it's just, like, how numbers work there in a moment, right? But because of that, it really feels like we are skipping a whole lot more than we actually are. Of course, like, we are getting hints at, like, yes, this arc is very prevalent, and it will go to explain a whole lot of the events happening here in this episode. But of course, like, let me just go to my binder real quick. So, like, last episode covered up to chapter 17. So, like, hey, currently we're missing 18 and 19, right? Along with all the chapters between 21 and 31. Well, in that, we know next episode we are getting one of those in the Conchi's Part-Time Diary series, and of course then we'll be skipping chapter 19, which is a very good chapter, so we will be going back to definitely cover it at some point, if I'm not mistaken, but it may be after the bigger arc, though, because of course, like, hey, the anime has the ideas like, hey, we know where this series is going, and if we want to pull in readers, we have the ability to be able to do that in a different way than, of course, the original manga was able to on a weekly release. So because of that, really the major changes in this episode aren't very many, pretty much, but it's really just the addition of a few characters in certain scenes, right? So chapter number 20 with Kan and Nico's channel almost runs beat for beat as the manga does, right? Pretty much going through, getting introduced to Keigo, all of this various stuff. Hey, Keigo's channel, and then Morihito takes over to really help out. But really, where this episode shines through is it's able to bring Keigo a lot more into the story earlier. As I mentioned, he will have a lot of prevalence during the next arc as he will sort of like join the team, pretty much. I mean, I don't think that's a massive spoiler, being like the opening spoils it enough, pretty much. But the whole idea coming in here is like, hey, really introducing Keigo earlier and having him really be part of the crew, I think is a very good change. Because, of course, whenever we see him lazing around the house as like he's helping out with Kan and Nico's channel, pretty much, that doesn't happen in the manga. It's strictly Nico, Kan, and Morihito doing all of that. Keigo isn't anywhere to be seen, right? And, of course, they also had to add in this little bit of an idea during the tea ceremony part, like, hey, why is Keigo with the crew now? And pretty much this was brought up that he was helping them out with these classes, but we will understand through some events that happen later in the anime and manga that there is a more important reason why Keigo would actually be here to begin with. And really, that's all the major changes, really just having to do with some parts of Keigo, but other than that, I just loved how these two episodes played out. I know that a lot of people were really enjoying. I mean, I read a few comments of what people thought about this episode, and a lot of people thought the tea ceremony stuff was really, really funny. I thought it was alright, but it wasn't as funny as I thought all of the Kan and Nico channel stuff are, and really just all of these small details that they put in. Like, whenever we see Nico on screen sitting there doing the YouTube stuff, we see, like, this green outline around her, which is very reminiscent of, like, that's what happens whenever you use a green screen. So it's really just going to see, like, the attention to detail that the animators put into all of these various scenes. Just a really good episode of Witch Watch episode number 7, again titled Kan and Nico's channel, and the tea ceremony is a piece of tea cake. But yeah, really follow that out of the way. I don't have too much else to say about this episode. Again, I thought it was just a really good time, and I can't wait to see where we're going next time. And again, as weird as it is, like, we're going around to all of these major chapters, like, whoa, I don't very much like that. It also seems like we have a very important reason why we are skipping all the way around from chapter number 37 to chapter number 18 and all of those other chapters around there, right? So there is a reason for that, definitely, at the end of the day. But yeah, really follow that out of the way. Thank you guys so very much for watching this video on Witch Watch episode number 7. If you want to see some of my thoughts on the other Witch Watch episodes, there will be a playlist link down in the description box down below, and also on the end card of this video. It's like, hey, there's the Witch Watch playlist, go check out the other videos on the series, and like, hey, if you like my thoughts on this, maybe you'll like my thoughts on some manga series and other things around there, so just go to my channel at Glowplasma and check out all of the content I make there, and yeah, really thought all of that out of the way. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time for Witch Watch episode number 8. Again, that episode will be titled Conchi's Part-Time Job Diaries, the Superhero Show, and the Side Job. So yeah, I'll catch you guys then. This will be Glowplasma 231, signing out.